to make excuses for our extraordinary results. Often we say, oh, I don't know how that happened to me. And it can be good or bad. How did I win the lottery? Oh, that would be great to know. Or just, how did I have such a great experience? Something behind you, something behind your thoughts was bold. Something pushed you forward. You know, every generation has souls that are bold. And it sets them apart because they're heroes. It's not because they deserved it. It was because they spoke it. They claimed it. They knew it was theirs. And they knew that they were one. They were one with God. And how do we achieve this? How do we find boldness? I was sitting here thinking when Tress was doing our meditation, that how do we develop boldness? And whether you believe in reincarnation or, like Ernest Holmes says, all our lives are simultaneous. Well, guess what? You don't have to be bold today. You can be bold yesterday. Isn't that so great? I can go to an experience I had yesterday and rewrite it. I've taken some workshops on rewriting your history, and I thought, how does that happen? Well, I think you have to take an active participation in something that's happening in your life, whether it's today, whether it's something that happened yesterday that's still bothering you today. And go back to there and say, what would happen if I would bold that day? If I boldly spoke my truth, the audacity of me to speak my truth, I think that's better than holding it inside. But it takes getting out of your comfort zone. Again, that word, boldness and audacity, it pushes some people's buttons. But that's okay, because you're speaking your truth. Neil Donald Walsh says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And I'm literally right now working on walking my talk. Every day I think, am I manifesting what I talk about? Am I talking about what I'm manifesting? And I'm working on developing these traits to help me walk in a bold, audacious way. And if most of you know me, I'm pretty timid on the inside. But I know that I have a bold past because I'm a survivor. I rose from the ashes many times. I was the phoenix. Everybody here has had a spiritual experience, and that's what brought you here. Because I had a spiritual experience, and I want to feel it again. Well, you sure can. You can experience it by shocking people into being bold and audacious. But there's a couple of things that I adapted into my life that helps me. And one of them is coping. I have a coping power. And it's a fundamental human trait. We all have it. Wendy calls it flight, fight, or freeze. And it's in our genes. However, we want to cope with something. And you can either cope with it by being bold, which could create some dissension. And sometimes for me, I just remain peaceful and calm. That's my coping power. And then self-worth. You have to have self-worth. Know what you're worth. Know you're worth more than all the stars in the sky and all the grains of sand. When I wrote to boldly go where no one has gone before in my introduction earlier, I was thinking of James Kirk and on Star Trek. He was always in defiance of somebody, and he was always going where no man has gone before. And maybe that's holy boldness, going somewhere where you've never gone before. We can learn from that. And I often talk about, I know my values. Do you know what you value? If you know what you value, then everything else is a measure of that. And you don't have to make excuses because somebody pushes your button and you can just know that's not my values. And that probably isn't the place to use holy boldness and audacity, because who they are could be different than who you are, and they're following their own bliss. I mean, unless they're doing something immoral or illegal. But for all of us, we all want something from somebody else. We want them to be somebody else. But if we know what we value and what our virtues are, we can allow other people to practice what they value. And the last thing I think you really need for holy boldness and audacity is faith. Because boldness is actually an act of love. It's a call to action, and it's necessary to inspire other people. If they see you being bold in the face of adversity, Marianne Williamson says, everything we do allows other people to do it. That's why we're given the gift. So holy boldness requires some skills that we all inherit. Courage, conscientiousness, creativity, and spiritual wellness. And all of that produces growth and healing and spiritual enlightenment. When I was talking about going back to something that happened in your past and expressing holy boldness or being audacious in that experience, I was thinking about movies. I watched this movie, I don't know if you've ever watched them, where it starts and it says 3 months ago. And you watch that. And then it says 3 weeks ago. And you watch that. And then it goes to 3 minutes ago. And those kind of movies really bug me. But they are a real analogy of our life. Because something will happen in our life and we look at it and say, well, how did that happen? Guess what? If you go back 3 weeks, 3 months, my mom always said when you get a cold, you were probably stressed 3 days ago. So I'd go back 3 days. That was probably not true, but it was her way of saying, just take care of yourself. So I think if we go back to where we started, we'll find out how that actually happened. And there are a couple of stories. Of course, I want to tell you about my story. And so when I was a teenager, we had this boy living at our house. So I was 14 and he was 16. And guess what? My mom let us share a room. So pretty soon I was 15 and he was 17. And then one day I was pregnant. And my mom says to me, how did that happen? I'm sure years later she was like, oh my gosh, was that ever silly? But that's a really good example of, what happened 6 months before. So I want you all to think about one thing in your life that happened that really impacted the trajectory of your life. And chances are that you could have stood up for yourself. You could have spoken your truth. You could have had the audacity to say what you thought, and you didn't. In the book, The Power of Decision, it says, not making a decision is making a decision, because the universe will make that decision for you. And in Science of Mind classes, we always teach about that. It's to go the other way. When we're doing an affirmative prayer treatment, and we're affirming for health, prosperity, love, what does that look like for you? What is it going to look like 3 minutes from now when I'm talking about prosperity or peace? What is it going to look like in 3 weeks and in 3 months? And that is how you manifest it, because you have to see it to believe it. And you have to believe it to say it. So all you got to do is say it. In Psalms 119, it says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Wow, what could be more clear than that? Your word. And I know that all of you have had an experience where someone told you you had a limited experience, like, you didn't finish high school, so you'll never succeed. And so you carry that with you your whole life. And I got to tell you one more story about my life. When I was in my 20s, I was living in the Okanagan, and this psychic came to town. And, she was called a fortune teller then. Now they have a different word. And I had no money, but my friend gave me the money, and I went to this fortune teller. And do you know what she said to me? I see you have a good life, but you're never going to be rich, and you're always just going to get by. Well, I tell you, I still say that. I'm not afraid because I'll always get by. And the first part of that was letting my friend pay for the fortune teller. I was a self-fulfilling prophecy that I'd always get by. But I don't want to keep saying that story over and over. I don't want to sing that song over and over. I wish I had the audacity to say to her, "Oh yeah? Well, watch this." Because I own my own house, I have a beautiful car, I can go for coffee anytime I want. And somebody once said to me, that's prosperity. If you can afford a cup of coffee, that's more than a lot of people in the world. So when I hear the word audacity or boldness, for me it just means that you're looking to change your life, to rise above your limiting beliefs. And if somebody says to you the audacity of it all, just say thank you for recognizing that in me. And Ernest Holmes, when I was talking about the past and the present and the future, Ernest Holmes says, he has an interesting theory. He said, as we watch the process of thought, we find that we may think consciously, and we may also find that something happens to our thoughts after we've thought them. They become a memory. Now, sometimes you can't erase memories, but your thoughts, whatever they are filed in your memory box. And the only thing you can do is start filling them with better memories, with more life-affirming memories, and push those to the back of your file cabinet so that they don't instantly pop up when you experience that same thing. Now, some of us have great techniques on thinking the right thoughts and have bold conviction or act with audacity. But any time you're being pushed, you can ask yourself, what is the effect of what I'm thinking right now? What's going to happen in 3 days, in 3 weeks, in 3 months? You know, your physical body is a great barometer. If things aren't going good in your life, you feel it. And if you think about something and it doesn't feel right, you feel down, that's a good signal. Okay, I got to change that thought because I want to feel up. And when you're aligned with your values and your virtues, you flip things. You turn on the switch. You can physically watch yourself go to the door. Oh, that switch is down. No more of that. I'm changing that. And I can't tell you how excited I am, because every time I write a talk, I discover something new. So I'm so excited to walk this road of enlightenment, to start being bold and audacious. Oh, my kids are not going to like it. But they'll get used to it. And if they say the audacity of Mom, I'll say, thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I'm always looking for something that resonates with me. I'm really physical. And I was thinking about your past and your present, and I was thinking about a compass. We have a physical compass that points north, and we have a moral compass. But do you know what happens if you look at a compass? It's pointed on both ends. So when you're looking at your moral compass, it could be pointing towards something north, to peace and joy and love. And it only can point there because that's the words that you spoke into that compass. And you know, with your physical compass, it doesn't matter which way you turn it, it's always going to point north. Where am I? Probably that's north. And the same thing with your moral compass. If you have a strong moral compass, you know where you're from, you know where you're going, people can twist you around and it doesn't matter. You're always pointing to your moral compass. It always points towards peace, love, and joy. You know, in real life that can happen sometimes. We think we're pointed in the right direction, but it doesn't take us where we want to go. So you got to look at the other end of that needle on your compass. Where is it pointing? You know, I wanted to explore just a little bit of how that relates to our personal lives, because we have a personal compass and a moral compass. We have definite ideas about what we want in our life, and when we notice that the needle at the center, it doesn't move. It stays static. That moral compass can go around, and in the center, in your heart, there's only peace. So I ask you to be bold, be holy, have audacity to ask for what you want. And I want to close my closing treatment to be a drumming song that Janet taught me. And it's about opening up, because I know that nothing happens unless we open ourselves to a different experience of life. And so I saw one of the centers singing this song, and I thought, I remember when Janet did that at Drumming Circle, and it's called, I Am Opening Up in Sweet Surrender to the Luminous Love Light of the One. I'll try to sing quiet. I am opening up in sweet surrender to the sweet love and music of the One. I am opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the One. I am opening. I am opening. I am opening. I am opening. I am opening up to the bold surrender to the sweet music of the One. I am opening up in bold surrender to the luminous love light of the One. I'm open to changing my consciousness, to being bold and audacious. The nerve of me. Watch out, world, here I come. I am Reverend Joanne Faith, peace and love, Boruck, and I wish you a happy Canada Day and a beautiful summer in Alaska. And together we say, and so it is.